Hello, everyone. I'm Kimberly Adams. Welcome back to Make Me Smart, where we make today make sense. Thank you for joining us, whether you're on the YouTube live stream or listening later on. Happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy
Welcome to
Halloween.
our Yes, happy Halloween. Welcome to our weekly Friday happy hour. It's our Economics on Tap episode. And as you can see, if you're watching, joining me today is the wonderful Reema Khrais. Hello, Reema.
Hi. Oh my gosh, it's so good to be back.
I know, right? For those who
Yeah.
aren't in the know, Reema is the host of This Is Uncomfortable and no stranger, of course, to Make Me Smart. Reema, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. How
What
are you
have you
doing?
been working on lately?
So I feel like the last time I was on the show maybe was a couple months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, I've been working on This Is Uncomfortable. So as you said, I host this marketplace show, This Is Uncomfortable, which has been around now for 5, 6 years. And we're a seasonal show where we explore the way that money impacts our lives and our relationships, our sense of self, all that good stuff. And we are actually pivoting the show right now, which is really exciting. We're producing episodes to release a new iteration of the show come January. And so, like I said, we've historically been seasonal. We come out with seasons a couple times a year. But now, after more than 10 seasons of the show, we're like, it's time for a revamp. So
Mm-hmm.
we're evolving and we're maintaining the heart of it, still exploring the unexpected, intimate ways money shapes our lives. But we're going to be in people's feeds more often. We're going to be a weekly show and reacting more to the headlines, to what's going on in the culture, the zeitgeist, offering advice segments, hearing from listeners, you know, answering their questions. So we're really excited. I think it's going to be a good pivot for the show. And yeah, so that's what we're doing. We're producing episodes to release in a few months.
And we're going to get a little sampling of your advice giving in just a little bit. But first, we got to do the most important, well, not the most important, an important part of happy hour, which is what are you drinking?
What am I drinking? So I am drinking a pineapple paradise wild from Wild
Mm.
Wonder. It's a prebiotic and probiotic. And
Ooh.
yeah, I went over to the co-op earlier, got it, and it's pretty good. I was looking into it, and apparently the founder was on Shark Tank.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
yeah, well, the flavors are inspired by her Chinese grandmother's herbal tonics, which like explains why when I was looking at the ingredients, one of them is Sichuan peppercorn extract, which I thought was kind of
Nice.
surprising. Yeah, but what I really wish I brought, Kimberly, but I
What?
couldn't get my hands on, was a drink that my friend gave me the other day from Costco. It was a
Mm.
sparkling water with 30 grams of protein. Have you seen this? 30
No,
grams in a
that's a
spark.
lot of protein in a
It
drink
was
in general.
confusing.
That's like a Sabri drink, like a
Yeah, and
protein shake.
yeah, it's there was like a milky quality to it, but honestly, it
Hmm.
wasn't too bad. But
Okay. Well, first of all, I do have to tell you that you're getting so much love in the chat, and people are super excited about the weekly show
oh,
coming up. So, shout out to all the folks and the love for Rima in the YouTube chat.
oh, I
And
miss y'all.
let's look at what everybody's drinking. Mike is having a Samuel Smith's organic chocolate stout. Matt and Aludra, sorry if I said your name wrong, cherry pomegranate sparkling water. Let's see, Miles is having a Budweiser, St. Louis, sort of, I guess at this point. And let's see, and Debbie is having a Soda Stream Mount View water plus coconut water plus mango
Mm,
Izzy, which sounds
wow.
very fruity and delightful. And also a special shout out to Debbie Donovan, who has a personal win that she's celebrating. She just passed her U.S. figure skating bronze dance test level, adult 50 plus
What?
follow solo. Congratulations, Debbie. That's
Wow.
amazing. It's an
Congrats. That's
awesome win.
amazing.
Yeah, let's
Wow.
see. Margie is having ranch water, Mighty Unlikely with the blackberry seltzer, and then Todd is having a Liquid Death cherry obituary. And
Hmm.
I feel like I saw something else. Okay, this is another obituary. NW Marco says, in honor of Halloween, I'm having an obituary, basically a gin martini with a splash of absinthe. Apologies to Kimberly, but since gin is the devil, it seemed appropriate. Very well done there. Very well done there.
Nice. What are you
I
drinking?
actually, well, I am being a little dull, but trying to jazz it up. I'm having red wine, but I'm having it in my fancy
Mm,
dragon goblet because that
that's
felt
so
very
fun.
like gothic and Halloween. Um,
Yeah,
I was
that's
actually
appropriate.
at my neighborhood bar a couple like last weekend, and my favorite bartender there convinced me to try this gin cocktail that he made specially for me because he's very convinced he's going to convince to get me to like gin.
Yeah.
And I was so sick, Rima. I was so sick. I got so sick, and I was like,
Really? That's
"Gin
also
is the devil."
that's also kind of awkward. Did you go back and tell him that you got sick? No,
No, I
you
haven't
can't
been
do
back.
that.
I'll tell him next time.
Yeah, yeah,
All
yeah,
right, let's get to some
yeah.
a lot more serious topics. We did a call out asking folks to share some of your financial fears because it is a really scary time in this economy for a lot of folks for very valid reasons. And financial anxiety is something that a lot of us deal with in one way or another at some point in our lives. Rima, I know you've talked to a ton of folks about this on your show over the
Yeah.
years. And so we got several really good questions about this. We want to unpack them together. So, Rima, I'm going to read you this first one,
Okay.
which is from Kurt in Michigan, who says, I got a 10-year delayed start on retirement savings. And even when they did start, they weren't on the kinds of professional earnings I've hit in the last 10 years. So I'm like almost 15 years delayed in the retirement savings building. I imagine a lot of people can empathize with the feeling like they
Hmm.
don't have enough saved for retirement.
Oh,
What have
yeah.
the experts you've talked to over the years said about that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's so real, right? I think, like you said, a lot of people start saving for retirement later than they planned, especially people who are more established in their careers later in life. And so I think it can be hard to quiet that shame narrative beneath it, like, I'm behind, I'm never going to catch up, because that voice can feel rational, right? When you're looking at all these people who've been saving since they were like 25 or whatever. But, I think that feeling of anxiety or urgency is not it's not helpful. I talked with this therapist recently for another episode that we're producing right now, um, about layoff anxiety and how to cope with it, and just like this fear that you might be laid off. And a lot of the tools she shared, I think, are helpful at this kind of question too, which is like, she was like, there's what I call the change lever and the acceptance lever, right? So the
Hmm.
change lever is like the behaviors that we can control, we can plan, we can gather information, take practical action. And the acceptance lever is like, it's not resignation, it's more so this mental posture that acknowledges uncertainty and makes space for discomfort without trying to completely get rid of it. And so I think a helpful reframe here is like, your starting matters far less than your consistency. As long as you're making
Hmm.
consistent contributions, assuming that you can, even if they're modest amounts, then I think that's great. And, you know, I think the another thing that I hear often from therapists to help lessen the anxiety is really getting clear with yourself about what you actually want. I think a lot of us default to this vague sense that like we need more for the sake of having more, but I'm sure I've said this before and make me smart to you, Kimberly, but like money itself is not always the goal, right? It's the tool to reach whatever goal you want. And so I think asking yourself what you want your days to look like later in life, where you might want to live. Do you want to work part time? Are you okay with downsizing? Do you want more flexibility? So asking yourself those questions, I think when you do that, you're less likely to reach for a generic or abstract benchmark that has little connection to your actual values or obligations or the quality of life you want, right? So yeah, I think figuring out a version of retirement life that fits your vision and then figuring out clearly the steps you need to take to build towards it can lessen that anxiety. But I get it. I mean, I don't know about you, Kimberly, but I only realized recently that I had not rolled over my retirement accounts from my early 20s. And that's actually an episode that we're
Mm.
doing for next season too, where I was like, oh my God, I discovered this. And it's apparently a lot harder to do than one
Mm.
would think. But
In, it's really interesting to hear you talk about sort of what you actually want your retirement years to look like, because I read this super fascinating piece in The Atlantic this past week. It's actually from June of 2019, but
oh,
I just came across it. And It's about how the headline is your professional decline is coming much sooner than you think, and here's how to
Mm,
make the most of it. And it's about sort of managing the end of your career and what you do in retirement with intention. And a lot of that does come back to, you know, moving beyond stuff and material needs.
yeah.
Now, that said, aging is expensive in America. That is a real thing, but there are things that you can do to adjust your lifestyle to kind of adapt to what you do have. And preparation is key, just like you said, and there's a lot of things you can do in advance to at least set yourself up for as much success as possible. All right, speaking of aging, which ties into healthcare, we got a question from Bob from the future slash library on Discord, who's worried about, quote, the uncertainty of healthcare costs or even availability given the shutdown, which I know a lot of people are worried about right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, a lot of people are. I think, this fear is not just some vague sense of panic, right? It's tied to very real things happening right now. Our government's dysfunction is making it hard for people to plan, not knowing
Yeah.
whether the premiums are going to go up, if subsidies will go. I think,
Yeah, I've actually done a bunch of reporting on this.
yeah.
KFF, which is a healthcare policy think tank and news analysis shop, they are estimating that if these enhanced Obamacare subsidies do expire, which is kind of what this shutdown fight is all about, people could see their healthcare costs who are on the exchanges going up by as much as like 114%, in some cases even more. And we're already seeing reports from people looking at what their prices are and that they're going to be so much higher. I was talking to a girlfriend of mine who's on Obamacare, and she said that the cheapest policy she would be able to get under this new system would be $800 a month
Mm.
more expensive than
Stop.
what she's already paying.
Wow.
And other people are coming back with numbers even higher. And it's like, what do you do with that? How do you absorb it? And the experts I've talked to have said that a lot of people are going to be pushed into higher deductible healthcare
Yeah.
plans. They may delay care. More people, they're expecting millions of people, will likely drop coverage altogether, and that will push more people into emergency rooms and things like that. Now, that I know that doesn't help alleviate the fear. I'm trying to validate that these concerns are real and based on real things.
Hmm.
So,
And didn't you do
related
reporting
to
too
the,
about how it could impact people who have workplace insurances too? Could lead to higher
oh yeah,
premiums?
absolutely. I did that story that aired on Monday, and we are also expecting higher premiums for
Right.
workplace covered insurance plans as well, just because healthcare in America is getting a lot more expensive. Some of this is because of the, like, more people using GLP-1 weight loss drugs. Some of it is because of these new gene therapies that are incredibly successful at treating rare diseases, but also incredibly expensive, and it drives up healthcare costs overall. I should say the Trump administration has made some motions of trying to negotiate prescription drug prices down and made some deals with pharmaceutical companies. But this is kind of nipping at the edges of what is really expensive healthcare in America. Now, when it comes to the shutdown in particular, we're going to have some links in our show notes with resources for understanding some of those changes that are coming to the Affordable Care Act as open enrollment begins, I think, tomorrow for a lot of folks. Although,
Yeah.
depending on what happens with the shutdown,
We'll see.
who will
Yeah.
see. But we're also going to include some resources that might be useful for federal workers as the shutdown continues. Now, Reema, I'd love to ask you though,
Yeah.
given how real these concerns are and these kind of unabsorbable almost price increases, I know you've talked to a lot of folks over the years who just have daunting financial obstacles. What have you
Hmm.
heard in terms of the best way to think about those?
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think going back to even that therapist I talked with for the layoff anxiety piece, and I've heard this,
Mhm.
in other instances, but just naming that feeling, first of all, reduces the power, right? Reminding yourself that this stress reaction, like you said, isn't irrational. It's your brain responding to uncertainty in a system that affects your health and finances. And the antidote to that is, again, controlled action, even if you're taking these smaller steps. So things like, in this case, reviewing and updating your healthcare information, or even setting aside like what you can, even if it's just like $10, $15, whatever you can afford every, 2 weeks or whatever. The amount is less important than the ritual. I think I
Mm-hmm.
hear often from researchers that just doing a thing, right, makes signals to your brain that I am doing something about this. I'm preparing and not just waiting to be blindsided. So you're creating these kind of cognitive anchors so you're less likely to spiral. And something else that I've heard that has always stuck with me is to avoid extreme narratives, even though it's very tempting. It's
Mm.
easy for us to catastrophize and to think, in the case of getting laid off, for example, that your life, if you get laid off, your life will collapse. Your partner's going to leave you. You're going, you go into these extremes, and that those kinds of all or nothing stories only heighten our sense of worry. So it's really, I remember I talked with one therapist who was like, actually write down the percentage chance that that bad outcome might happen, which was such an interesting exercise. And the point of that, though, is again to just remind yourself what support systems you might have, what the reality of your finances are. So it's, like with all of this, it's hard because
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about like individual solutions to systemic problems.
Right. A couple folks in the chat have pointed out that maybe this is going to get so bad that might, push a policy solution where we get some version of universal health care or something
Hmm.
else. Like if this many people are suffering, just like there was a huge push for better healthcare policies and like the end to pre-existing conditions when Obamacare
Hmm.
first passed. Like it was because people were in crisis, and maybe another crisis will push for a policy solution. All right, I want to get to another question. Neveza from Knoxville wrote, they're worried about income not matching living costs, particularly in terms of rent of apartments skyrocketing. What do you think of that one?
First of all, I worry about this too. And again, this is a systemic squeeze. It's not a personal failing, right? Not a reflection of your
Mhm.
discipline or hard work. Objectively, the cost of necessities, our housing, our education, our food, everything has skyrocketed over the years, not keeping up with our wages. And that is objectively scary. I
Mhm.
have done a lot of housing reporting over the years, as I'm sure you have, Kimberly. And I feel like increasingly I'm hearing people getting so creative with co-living situations, like living with friends to save money, even late adulthood, or living in less ideal places or locations in order to save money on rent. And those stories can seem amusing, but they're also pretty bleak. But I think coping with this fear is hard, right? There's only so much you can do.
Mhm.
But I think going back to that control and acceptance lever framework comes down to controlling what you can, building pockets of stability and agency wherever, however you can. So I think sometimes, in practical ways, it can look like if you're renting, you can check out your local renters protections. You might have rights and resources you didn't know existed, like caps on rent increase or assistance programs. I've heard of, in many cases, people talking to their property owner and being able to negotiate, different rent outcomes. And so I think it's, and yeah. So a couple thoughts. I think it's easy again to think of this as a personal failing, but it is a structural
Mm.
issue. And
Yeah.
I've and so there's the housing piece and there's also the income piece. I've done a lot of reporting over the years about how we can advocate for ourselves in the workplace, like not just negotiate a harder, not just negotiating, but also approaching your work in a research driven way, collecting data about your contributions and your outcomes, talking with colleagues you trust to understand, things like pay bands and promotion pathways, documenting the value you create instead of, hoping that it gets noticed. And I know that again puts a lot of the responsibility on the person to advocate for themselves. But, I was just talking with a career coach who was making these same suggestions. I think oftentimes we think our work will go noticed, and we really have to document what we're doing and find what value is needed in our workplace and try to reposition ourselves in an economy where like there's so much financial precarity and we don't know if we're going to
Yeah.
have our jobs tomorrow, so there are these practical things that we can do.
All right, one more real quick from Andrew in New York. My fears are blessedly mostly about my children. My kids are bright middle school and elementary aged, and with the increasing cost of education coupled with low pay for jobs that make the world a better place, I worry that they will feel forced to chase money rather than satisfaction.
Our intern is actually working on a story about this right now. She's part of Gen Z. And she
Mm-hmm.
came to us to an editorial meeting the other day and was like, I think we should do a story about how younger people are more inclined to go after work that pays well than work that feels fulfilling, because this was
Mm.
something that she was noticing in her friend groups. And so, yeah, we're working on an episode right now where our intern is basically asking this question of like, should I sell out? Like, do I follow my passion, or do I do a 9 to 5 that affords me more stability and health insurance, right? So I hear the fear, and what's the listener's name, Andrew, and Andrew's
Mm-hmm.
comment. Like, so much of it feels like it's about identity, like who his kids will become or how they'll contribute to society. And it sounds like, Andrew, you really want them to be guided by curiosity and service and connection and not scarcity. And that makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. And my mind right now is going into like financial therapy land, because I do think so much of our relationship with money and work, it's shaped by societal and economic influences, of course, but when you're a kid, so much of that messaging is coming from conversations you're having at home or what they're overhearing. And so, or how they're seeing their family members practice their values. And so I think it's important for families to talk about money in ways that feel healthy and open, in a way that frames money as, again, a tool and not a reflection of your self-worth. So it's not something you feel like you have to constantly chase or be afraid of. And so, you know, going back to that story that our intern pitched, I'm supposed to talk next week actually to a researcher who looked into this question of what can happen when you sell out. And
Mm-hmm.
he talked to people in like these so-called golden handcuffs, people who have elite jobs at big corporations like investment bankers.
Yeah.
And of course, like the consensus was that they were burnt out and overworked and felt unfulfilled. And I, I like, so, you're, that's just like the reality sometimes of going after work that is, not something that actually feels meaningful to you. And something that comes up a lot in my reporting while covering this topic is just how important it is, regardless of what you do at work, to build a life outside of your career. Like, your identity can't hang entirely on work because, as we know, nothing
You
is
can't tell
guaranteed,
that to
Kimberly.
journalists.
I know, right? But it's true.
I know.
And like, yeah, the research shows like we are happier when we cultivate. I know I say this and I'm like, it's hard for me to even internalize it, but the research does show, right, that people are happier when they cultivate
Yeah.
purpose, not just in their jobs, but in multiple areas of their lives.
Well, Reema, thank you so much for sharing your expertise on this. I think it's really validating to hear you talk about all the ways that these fears are real and that there are strategies to approach them. Now that we've gotten the super serious stuff done, let us take a quick break. And when we come back, we are going to play a nice, fun, hopefully light
Mm-mm.
Halloween themed game. We'll be right back.
Ooh.
Very spooky theme. We are back and it is game time. We are going to play a spooky round of Would You Rather? And of course, we have a special guest host today, our Marketplace Tech producer, Daniel Shin. Take it away, Daniel.
Hello and salutations to the YouTube
Oh,
chat.
God.
Question one for both of you. Would you rather wear a store-bought costume or a homemade one?
Homemade. Is that a question? What are you thinking?
It depends on the store, right? Because I have had very amazing costumes made by stores on Etsy that are actually like small
Haha.
creators.
Yeah,
So
that's a good answer.
they do a much better job than I ever could myself. So because small businesses are also stores, I'm going to say I prefer the store bought, although I wish I had the skills for a handmade. What's the
Okay.
next one, Daniel?
All right, number two. Would you rather read a scary book or watch a scary movie?
Oh,
Oh
100%
wow.
scary book.
Neither.
Because I need
I'm
to be
such
able to
a
put it
scary cat.
down and walk away. I can't.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, then scary too. I can't do horror. Even like mildly, oh, I know this about you too. You don't like horror either. Anything that just even implies like blood or anything that's gross, I can't. I have
Yeah, I'm
to
trying
watch
to
only
find
light comedies these days.
I'm trying to find there was this like stop motion animation movie that came out from like some Canadian film like thing, and I'm trying to find it, but I'll find it and put it in the show notes. But it's basically about these really scary characters that exist in the indigenous culture there, and they've made like the stop motion animation. It's like super duper scary looking, and it looks so fascinating, and I want to watch it, but I'm afraid. So I'll find the link to it, and because I think it's available online, and then we'll put it in the show notes. But I'm trying to decide if I can watch it this
That
weekend,
seems like
but I'm afraid.
safe-ish
I
territory.
don't know, man.
I
It
could
looked
do
a
like
little
an Agatha
scary.
Christie, now that I think about it. Like more mystery, less horror.
Here it is. It's called Inkwo for When the Starving Return, and it's a short film that's
Beautiful.
stop motion animation. We'll drop the link in the show notes. Anyway, what's the next one, Daniel? Is it time for the poll?
Not quite yet, but
Not quite. Okay, what's the next one?
would you rather turn into a zombie or a werewolf?
Love how serious these questions are. Um, a werewolf.
Same. I don't want to werewolves don't have to eat people, and it seems like zombies do.
Yeah.
And
And werewolfs are soft and furry, and they live
yeah,
in the
you could be a
woods,
cute
which,
werewolf.
yeah. Everyone says
Everybody's
werewolf in the
agreeing with
chat.
werewolf. Yes, everyone.
Yeah, I don't want to eat brains.
No. All right. Now I think it's time for the poll. What do we have, Daniel?
All right, the poll question, I believe. Would you rather only have chocolate candy or only gummy candy?
Oh,
Ooh.
this is tied to an interview that I did last week for the PM show with Yasmin Tayag of The Atlantic, who had written
Oh.
about, because of the cocoa shortage, that a lot of chocolate companies or a lot of candy companies are putting less chocolate in their products and promoting more gummy products. And also using like marshmallow cream fillings and like cookie
Mm,
fillings and all
I can
these
get
other
behind
things.
that, even
Yeah.
though it's
And
less chocolate.
so, by the way, people are loving the idea of you as a cuddly werewolf in the
Ooh.
chat. Um,
That's funny.
and I was out yesterday shooting this video for social media, and I ran into this guy who had a giant pile of candy in his garage that he was showing me. There had to be
What?
40 bags of candy. He was
Wait, sorry,
ready
what's the
for the
context?
holiday.
Oh, to give
It's for
the
handing out
chocolate.
candy
Oh.
tonight. No, he just had, I mean, the pile was, I kid you not, at least 2 feet high
I
off
hope
the
he gets
floor of his
through it.
garage. He
Last year
said
we
he
had a
goes through it every year because there's just like not a ton of people handing
wow.
out candy in my neighborhood. So, and I guess he gives a lot of candy. So anyway,
Last year I
um,
bought like $40 worth of candy. None of it, not a single piece went to a kid because no one came by. Anyway, hopefully
that's
this year will
sad.
be different. I'm sad. What does the poll say?
I'm
Or I
I'm
guess
a
we didn't
gummy
decide.
person actually, because like I love the little peachy gummy hearts. Those are like some of my
Oh,
favorites. I love those
those are great.
things. What about you? Are you a chocolate or a gummy
I'm a
person?
chocolate. I'm a chocolate girl. I just had a piece of chocolate before this, and probably will have one right after.
Well,
Oh,
it
89.
looks like the poll is on your side. 89% chocolate
Yeah.
and 11% gummies. We're talking about gummy candy for what it's worth, like just to be specific.
I
But
mean, you could do
anyway,
another
thanks.
version of this poll.
Yeah,
My
could.
answer would be a little
All
different.
right,
No, I'm just
thanks
kidding.
everybody for voting in the poll, and thank you, Daniel.
Thanks,
Very
Daniel.
welcome.
All right, and speaking of candy, like I just mentioned, if you want to see that giant stack of candy and my Halloween costume for this year, and as also learn some fun facts about the Halloween economy, I did shoot that little video yesterday. So head over to our social feeds, and we're at Marketplace APM. Our social team did a great job throwing it together with cool graphics and stuff. All right, that is it for today. Reema, thank you so much for coming back, and I can't
Thanks so much
wait
for
for the
having
next
me.
season of This Is Uncomfortable.
Thanks. January 15th.
Yay! So yeah, everybody should keep an eye out. And if you haven't caught up on the back seasons of This Is Uncomfortable, there's a lot to learn there in terms of how to deal with financial anxiety, and that a lot of folks are probably going through similar feelings to what many of our financial fears are. So stay tuned for that, and I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend and happy Halloween. Gotta get the bounce in. Make Me Smart is produced by Courtney Berkseeker, and today's episode was engineered by Charlton Thorpe. The team behind our YouTube live stream is Emily McCune and Antoinette Brock. Our interim supervisory senior producer is Stephanie Seek. Nancy Fargali is executive producer of Marketplace Shows, and Joanne Griffith is our chief content officer.
I'm going to eat
So are you
so
going to try
much
to hand out
chocolate
candy
tonight.
tonight?
Yes, I'm probably going to eat the candy that I've bought and hope that someone comes by.
Yeah.
Are you going to hand out?